Welcome to week 7 of the Prop Shop. I am your host, Bobby Stanley, also known as Prop Holiday on Twitter. And as you know, we are sponsored by Eric LeGrand Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Raise a glass to giving back. Every purchase of Eric LeGrand's premier Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey directly supports community members living with paralysis. Our whiskey is made of choice heartland-grown corn, limestone purified water, the freshest rye and barley available. When you pick up a bottle of Eric LeGrand bourbon, we make a donation to the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, so you enjoy the finest bourbon around, and you also lend a helping hand. Pick up a bottle of Eric LeGrand Premium Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey today, and cheers to a cause. Please enjoy responsibly. Produced by Eric LeGrand Spirits, distilled in Owensburg, Kentucky, bottled in Bardstown, Kentucky, and it is 88 proof by volume. Guys, welcome into Week 7 NFL. Last week, the show was on a slight hiatus. My son, he was not feeling too good. We were in the hospital all week. I had to delay everything as far as my handicapping, my articles, and this show. So I thank you for coming back. I could use actually a glass of that Kentucky whiskey right now. It is almost Friday. We're on Friday Eve. Now, the first few weeks of the Prop Shop, we've had a lot of ex-NFL guys. We had Glover Quinn, Clay Harbor, Anthony Armstrong. I'm doing a bit of a pivot. We're starting to head into that NBA season. We are through the first quarter easily of the NFL season, and I'm going to bring in some handicappers, some betting minds to help us continue to talk through these props. And NBA season, as it stands today, is 5 days away. I don't want to take anything away from NFL, but I do want to bring in our first guest. He is on Fanduel TV. He's a member of the Ringer Podcast Network, and he is formerly of Action Network. I think he's a damn good handicapper. Ladies and gentlemen, Raheem Palmer.
What's good,
Raheem,
man?
what's going on, man?
I'm chilling, man. I'm just we get ready for the NBA season. I'm kind of not ready for it, actually. It's so crazy because it just feels like it's snuck up on me this year. But we got NFL, we got the MLB playoffs. It's just a lot going on. WNBA just ended, so it's been a lot of fun.
You know what it was? I think it was the FIBA World Cup that we had these guys fresh in our mind in those down months that we normally don't pay attention to basketball. And now it's here. I mean, the preseason's been going on right now. You mentioned MLB. I'm not an MLB capper. How have you been doing in MLB? Because it is a grind that is coming to an end, handicapping MLB.
So, unlike NFL and NBA, I don't have a model for MLB. So I'm really just kind of picking my spots. I really tend to do well in the playoffs because at that point, I just have a good handle on the pitching. And then a lot of times with playoffs, you're riding a hot team. So, my beloved Philadelphia Phillies they've been rolling. So the last 2 years, I mean, I've been making a killing just betting on them. So that's been great.
So I do see a lot of your bets. I see you post a lot of stuff on Twitter. I listen to you on the Ringer Podcast Network on the Gambling Show. Tell us more about kind of your approach, because we talked a little about player props. You're like, I don't really touch it to the Super Bowl. You seem very disciplined in how you bet. So bring us into the mind of Raheem Palmer when he's doing some sports betting.
Okay, when it comes to NFL and NBA, I do have a model. And I basically
went to the University of Pennsylvania School of Business. I took Stat 101, Stat 102. I learned about regression analysis and everything like that. And when I got into sports betting, I initially was just a subjective handicapper. And I realized I needed to have a baseline. I needed to have a number to know, why am I to give you an example.
I'd say back in 2013, 2012. I don't know if everybody remembers this game,
but the Packers were laying 3.5 on the road to the Chicago Bears. And Aaron Rodgers was injured for most of that season, but he came back the last couple games of the season to, help them make the playoffs and win the division. They were laying 3.5 on the road. And the Packers are down, 2 points with, a minute to go. And they're going to kick the field goal, and I'm going to lose that bet. But he rolls out and then hits, Randall Cobb for a 40-yard touchdown. You go look this up. I mean, you'll see it. And the Packers end up covering, and I had about $4,000 on the game, and I'm like, I'm doing this wrong. I won, but I'm doing this wrong. So I went back to all my Stat 101, Stat 102 stuff. I started taking some stat classes. I taught myself, I retaught myself everything I learned in Open, which is a class on Excel. And then later on, I taught myself how to use this statistical program called R. So I taught myself how to code. And I basically built a basic model. And it's my framework for, knowing where the number should be. Now, that's one aspect. I always say that's just a baseline because if you could just make money just modeling the NBA or the NFL, everybody would do it. But it's a little bit more deeper than that. I watch all the games. So here, like right around me, I have about 3-4 TVs here. So I'm watching every game. I'm looking at, advanced metrics, and I'm just, taking my baseline model projection, but then also handicapping the games. And there's some subjective stuff, but there's also situational angles. There's, which, is in the NBA, is this team playing 3-4? Is this team playing 5-7? Who's officiating this game? What is the motivational angles? It's just like I'm trying to just play every single angle and then figure out, okay, which ones matter. And then I put that all together. I come up with a number, and I'm reading the market. A lot of times you'll see, I'm trying to think of a good example this week.
Okay.
A good example this week is the Baltimore Ravens and the Detroit Lions. It appears that the Baltimore Ravens are kind of undervalued in this spot. I mean, you have a Lions team coming in who we know the public is going to be all over. The Lions, I mean, they could be 6-1 for the first time, like since the 90s, and they've been rolling. But meanwhile, you have a Baltimore Ravens team who, like they can legitimately have a perfect record right now. So you're seeing them, you're seeing that they're undervalued. This line should probably be higher. So that's a game that I would play in NFL.
And you touched on a couple of things that struck with me as a player prop handicapper. And the game you mentioned, we're definitely going to talk about later, that Ravens-Lions game, because there is the baseline to it. I do feel like you're probably going to get some decent value on the Baltimore Ravens, but keeping in mind, coming back from London, that's a factor that these handicappers in Vegas never had to deal with. And that it plays a large role. I wouldn't say a large role. It plays a factor in handicapping this game coming back from overseas. And there are some trends that we've spotted. But something you touched on is I have a model and then I have my brain. I can get subjective at some point. I have a baseline and then I know what my eyes tell me. And I think the best handicappers out there have to be a mix of the two. You can't be a guy that bets with your gut all the time. You're not going to win. You're not going to beat Vegas that way. If you stick strictly to just a computer, everybody would do it. And like you said, it can't be done. When it comes to player prop handicapping, I have a model myself where I'll use receptions as an example. I will take a data set of targets over the last 3 to 5 years. Obviously, rookies, it's harder. You have a smaller data set, but targets 3 to 5 years. I will take reception rates, so reception completion percentage for this guy. So say he's anywhere from 60 on his best year, 68% on his worst year, highs and lows. Take your median, take your mean, median, and mode. You use normal distribution, and I'm going to project out a projection. And then how often will he hit this number over 10,000 projections, over 50,000, whatever you feel is necessary in an Excel sheet? How often will he hit this line? That will spit out a percentage. And that number at the side of our bet, that -110, that 53%, I'm going to compare that 53% to what my projection tells me over 10,000 simulations. Am I getting decent value? And then once I have my baseline, all right, I'm getting good value on this. Is it actually a good play? Do my eyes confirm what this model is telling me? So there is models to be used, obviously, when handicapping games on sides. There's models you can use for player props as well. The biggest downside to player props is if the guy gets injured, it's done. If the guy fouls out, at least in NBA gets in foul trouble, those minutes come down, because in NBA, it's how many points does he score per minute? How many minutes am I projecting? And if he's on a back-to-back, that's going to impact his minutes. Is he playing a team that traded him away? That may add some motivational factor. We all know about the James Harden playing in Houston, playing in Atlanta, playing in Miami themes that we've seen. So the point I'm trying to make is it is important to have a baseline and some data behind what you're doing, but there's some subjectivity that watching 3 TVs is going to give you. And I think the best guys do a mix of the two. So we can chop it up on a player prop model. I think you'll find mine pretty interesting. But with that, I want to go into NBA. We're talking about some win totals. We want to talk about the season. The first one you have up is a team I'm high on, and It's because of our guy Ant. Let's talk about T-Wolves over 44.5 wins. Why does this one stand out to you?
Okay, I think the biggest thing with this is that when you look at last season, Carl Towns only played 29 games. Like, so you have Carl Towns only playing 29 games, and they still were 42 and 40. So you get him back in the fold, and this win total is only 44.5. And you mentioned Anthony Edwards. ESPN has him as the 13th ranked player this year. And you're coming off of FIBA where it looked like he was the best player on that team. So he's going to make a leap. And, when I look at this team last year, they had some chemistry issues with, playing two bigs, Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns. And it seemed like at the end of the year, Chris French, he's a pretty good coach. It seemed like at the end of the year in that postseason series against the Denver Nuggets, they figured some things out. They really pushed the Nuggets. The Nuggets were dominant against pretty much everybody, but that was a closer series than it actually finished up as. So you give me a win total of 44.5 after this team won 42 games with Karl Anthony Towns playing just 29, and then you have Anthony Edwards making the leap, and you have just such a deep roster. You got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, you got Kyle Anderson. I think this team should shatter that. So I really like the over.
And looking at the Western Conference last year, this 44.5, 5 teams hit over this line in the West last year. They were the Suns, the Kings, the Grizzlies, and the Nuggets. But I like this Wolves team. One, there's something to be said about a guy coming off that. I mean, it's not the Olympics, but it's FIBA. I'm the best guy in the room amongst my peers. And then you come into that season a little bit more confident. We saw that with Jordan coming from the Olympic team. There's a little bit of a theme there. I like that Naz Reid got paid. I do think that says something about Karl Anthony Towns. They paid this man. And I was shocked that the Portland Trailblazers had no interest whatsoever in Cat when it came to that Dame trade market. I thought that would have been an awesome fit to pair Dame and Ant in the backcourt, maybe move Mike Conley as a piece, but bring in Cat to Scoot Henderson. They wanted no part of it. I'd be curious what the trade market is for Karl Anthony Towns. But this Wolves team, only team to deliver a loss to the Denver Nuggets. They're going to get better. And I think if Karl Anthony Towns does at some point get moved by the deadline, it's actually going to help this Timberwolves team in the back half of that regular season. Gobert and Naz Reid and Anthony Edwards, I like that. And I'm curious what a Karl Anthony Towns trade package would bring. But if they can get those two bigs to work together, this team was the only team to really give the Denver Nuggets a run for their money. They're big, and then they're athletic and very good at protecting the rim. I'm curious what that floor spacing is going to look like with Karl Anthony Towns, Gobert, and Ant. But I like over the 44.5. I think this is a team that takes a leap into that top half of a deep West.
Oh, yeah. I mean, without a doubt. It'll be interesting to see if, he's on the market.
I think there's going to be a lot of stars on the market this year. So we got to kind of stay tuned for that. But, if they're constructed as is and Carl's playing, as long as he takes a step back and let Anthony Edwards be the guy, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, no, this is his team. He's the face of that franchise. And he's a guy I actually bet in a market that's not very popular. It's Clutch Player of the Year. Last year, De'Aaron Fox won it. And then DeMar DeRozan and Jimmy Butler were 3rd and 2nd in that ranking. I think Anthony Edwards was 4th in clutch shot attempts, which is a big stat that goes into this market. Clutch shot attempts is last 5 minutes of the game and within a 5-point game. So Anthony Edwards is shooting those shots. He didn't shoot them at a high clip. De'Aaron Fox did. I think he shot like 55% in that market. He ended up winning the award. I like Anthony Edwards. I think he was 16-1 as the Clutch Player of the Year. Let's go over to the East. Let's talk about the Hornets, because when you told me this, you caught me off guard. So now I got to hear you out. 30.5 over on this Hornets team in win totals. Why do you like it, man?
Okay, so when you look at the Charlotte Hornets,
they were 27-55 last year.
And
we all know Miles Bridges didn't play. Like, he was suspended for most of the year. You had LaMelo Ball. He only played 36 games. They still won 27 games. You go back to 2022. Miles Bridges played 80 games. LaMelo Ball played 75. They had 43 wins. This was a play-in tournament team. So that right there truly makes up the difference. And you have experienced head coach in Steve Clifford. You add in, Brandon Miller. I just think this is a team that, is being undervalued so much. And actually, when I really think about it, some books have already gone to 31.5. So I think this total is way too low. If you want to play an alternate win total, you probably can do that, but 30.5 is a joke for this team.
It's a good point. People forget LaMelo missed a lot of last season. I mean, they're young with the exception of Rozier and Hayward, but I think Hayward's going to be a really good mentor to Brandon Miller, kind of showing him the way to play that 3 position in the NBA. And they're going to run. They're going to be out in the open. They're going to be a high-paced team. Those are teams that can squeak out wins later in the season if they still got the legs. I don't hate it. And obviously it's a numbers play. 27.5 can only go 3 more and get a healthy LaMelo Ball. I can see it. And also I really like Mark Williams. I like the way he kind of finished second half of that season. He was the big body guy. He was putting up some stats. A lot of times when it's April and you're looking at those games like, wow, this guy put up 25 points. Like, it's the end of the year and people stop giving a shit. But I like Mark Williams. I like his size. And at this number, it's very intriguing. With the next one, you lost me, man. I'm high on Dallas. You're going under on 44.5 win totals. Let me hear it. Lay into the Luka Kyrie duo. I want to hear it.
Okay. So we all love Luka Doncic. We all love Kyrie Irving. Last season, what was their downfall? It was defense.
Yeah.
24th in defensive rating, allowed 116 points per 100 possessions. This team, they can't defend, they can't rebound. What makes you think that changes this year? And like, they haven't really added any bigs. And one of the things that I like to look at is teams who go overseas. They went to Abu Dhabi, they had a really long road trip. Historically, if you look at teams who go overseas, they tend not to do well, or they tend not to go over their win total, because that first month of the season is a huge adjustment. You had training camp, you go overseas, and not only did they play 2 games at Abu Dhabi, I know they played the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I'm going over on them, but the Mavericks also played a game
against a EuroLeague team,
Real Madrid. So they stayed over there a little bit longer. And they had like a really long road trip. I think Mark Spears actually wrote about this, how long their road trip was. And teams who just don't win a game in preseason, like, it's one thing. Like, people say, oh, preseason doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you don't show me anything.
It matters.
When like you literally just don't look like a competent team. It matters. So that's an issue. We spoke about the defense. We spoke about the rebounding. Derek Lively, he's just not ready. He's not ready yet. I think he's a solid big, but if they're playing teams with competent bigs, they're going to struggle. So this is a team that's going to have to outscore you to win. Now you look at Luka Doncic. We all love Luka. He's amazing, but he's a guy who tends to play his way out of shape. He plays in FIBA. He plays international ball. Then halfway through the year, you notice that he's starting to gas out. I look at him like the European James Harden. He plays that heliocentric style of basketball, which is, great when you don't have like any other guys. But,
at some point in time,
that style of basketball is tough to win with. Kyrie Irving, love him to death. He's mercurial. I mean, who's to say, he just signed a new contract. Who's to say in February, things are not just going to go left. So they have all these things working against them. They have the defense, the lack of rebounding, the long road trip, struggling in preseason. Then you look at Jason Kidd. Historically, in his second and third year, the defense tends to fall off a cliff. His first year, what did he do? He had them playing defense. They were 6th in defensive rating. Following year, 24th. I expect that to continue. It happened with the Milwaukee Bucks as well.
There's some things you said I agree with, some things that I may push back on. When it comes to defense and what is their intensity, I think you bring in a guy like Grant Williams who has some defensive flexibility. You don't have to, like you mentioned a good point about Luka and gassing yourself out. Grant Williams can guard anywhere from a 2 to a 4. He has that defensive flexibility, that switchability. I actually like them I liked him as a pickup for them. He does not have the big man size. You mentioned Derek Lively. I'm a little bit higher than him than you may be, just as a rim protector. I do think he can alter shots. I do think he can pull down some boards. They bring in Rashawn Holmes from Sacramento, who not a defensive stalwart, but can he spell Lively, bring a little bit to that second unit in the post? I actually like Rashawn Holmes just defensively. I agree with you there. They're going to struggle with any big that comes in. Rudy Gobert is going to eat their lunch. You're looking at the rest of Jaren Jackson, he's going to have a field day. Domantas Sabonis. I totally agree with you there. And when it comes to a playoff team, they're probably going to struggle. Regular season, I like that Kyrie can come in and maybe take the ball out of his hands and, take the ball out of Luka's hands in some possessions and say, listen, man, either play off the ball, stay in shape, play off the ball a little bit. I don't want you to have to play James Harden basketball, because I totally agree with you. He's a Euro James Harden. Problem is, we kind of shun James Harden and we praise Luka a little bit, but it's essentially the same player when you look at their usage percentage. Anyway, I think they're going to be a decent regular season team. I think they're going to flirt with this number. Could it be 43? I think they're in that 43 to 47 window. For me, it would be a stay away, only because I'm high on Luka. I'm a Jersey guy. I love Kyrie Irving. I mean, I don't love everything he's done, but as a basketball player, I love Kyrie Irving. And I think he's in a position now where, yes, he got his money, but this is the last train home for him. If this doesn't work out and what you said happens come February, I mean, he's facing James Harden territory where nobody's going to want him. You're going to get traded for a bag of chips and some pick swaps. And I don't think Kyrie wants to get to that point. So I do think we see someone energized. He's out from that Nike deal. He's got his own shoe deal. He's getting praised by Mark Cuban. He's got an in-shape Luka. I have them between 43 and 47. I see your argument. I would just stay away entirely. But I'm also way too pro Kyrie than the
Before we
person.
move on, I'm going to remind everybody, and this is so fascinating. I just looked this up. The Mavericks have a 16% offensive rebound rate. That's 32nd amongst all the teams in the preseason. I mean, that's behind foreign overseas teams. Like, like that's including the Adelaide 36ers from the NBL. Like, this team can't rebound. That includes Maccabi. Like, their rebounding rate is absolutely abysmal. They're 31st in rebound rate, 32nd in offensive rebound rate. So this team is not going to be able to rebound, and you're going to see a lot of teams getting second chance shots. I mean, I know you're a prop player.
If you're playing against the Mavericks,
you probably want to take the opposing team's bigs over.
I'm going to make a note of that and probably hammer the hell out of it early on. But I mean, and you're right with just the sheer size. I mean, Tim Hardaway Jr., they had a Seth Curry. They're playing small ball. They're owning it. We got great. You're going to see a lineup of Kyrie, Luka, Grant Williams, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Max Kleber or Dwight Powell. Like you're going to see a very, very small team. They're probably going to give Golden State a decent run for their money in the regular season. But as you said, when you bringing a team with a front court and some size, they're going to struggle. I'm very curious.
And then Kyrie gets hurt. Kyrie gets hurt every year, so it's just like
don't speak that into existence, man.
I love Kyrie, but I mean, you got to pencil him for missing at least 20 games a season.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. Well, some of it's not related to injury. Some he just, decides to make a stand on something, and I'm going to fold it in. But I hope that doesn't happen. This is an interesting one. I'm going to keep an eye on through the regular season, at least through Christmas. We're going to know pretty quickly what this Mavericks team's about.
Yeah.
Let's stay in the West. Let's stay with an under. Stay with the West and an under. And this one I actually kind of like, but I want to hear your Kings take.
Okay, when it comes to the Sacramento Kings,
I weigh, if you can't tell already, I weigh defense really, really heavily. And this Kings team, they were the team that everybody bought low on. We had the over last year for this team, but they were 25th with defensive rating, allowing almost 117 points per 100 possessions. They got by on offense, which was first in offensive rating. And last year they were the healthiest team in the NBA. Like this was a team, they didn't have, many guys missing games. Sabonis played 79 games. Fox played 73 games. Barnes played 82. Keegan Murray, 80 games. Kevin Huerter, 75 games.
This is a team that relies on
offense, doesn't have a lot of defense, doesn't have a lot of rebounding. You get some injuries there, and I think that changes. And then also, they won 48 games last year. They set the win total at 44.5. The West is stronger.
Yeah.
Like, there's no easy wins there. You look at their division alone, the Lakers are a much better team. The Golden State Warriors, for what they did last year, you can't expect them to be historically great at home and on the road. Like, there's just no easy wins this year with anybody. The Suns, regardless of what you feel about the Suns, that's not an easy team to have in your division. So I just think you get some injuries, you get a Temple West. I really like this under, and I think they take a step back.
No, I totally agree with you. There's going to be some regression from this Kings team. They blew expectations out of the water last season. De'Aaron Fox, we talked about, clutch player. Sabonis, I want to see more added to his game. I think he has the potential to be a little bit better, but there's something missing, whether that be floor spacing. I just want to see another level out of Sabonis. I don't know if he has it. Keegan Murray, I think, is going to be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting to see if he can take another step. If he does, this line may be in jeopardy, but I'm not banking on it. I just think we saw two. I think they went over their skis last year. I expect some regression. The West, as you mentioned, hungry. That Lakers team finished the back half of that season as one of the top 5 teams in the NBA. After that D'Angelo Russell trade, they're going to come in and hit the ground running. So the only thing, Memphis as a team that I think is going to struggle. They may be able to pick some easy wins there. I think Memphis is going to struggle out of the gate in the West, but Sacramento at this number.
This year.
You do? I see. Not having John Morant for 20 games and letting Marcus Smart pretend he's Allen Iverson for 25 games is a recipe for disaster. I love Derrick Rose. I can't wait to watch 30 minutes a game with Derrick Rose. It's going to bring me back, 10 years. But I'm curious what that Grizzlies team without John Morant's going to look like.
I'm going over the
on the other. What's up?
I'm going over the Grizzlies win total.
What is their win total
this year? I think it might even be up to 46. It was like 44 at one point.
I love the Grizzlies this year.
Oh, screw the book. Bet me, man. Save the juice. although I've seen your bet size. I've seen your bet size. I can't take your bets, but
honestly, I'm betting a little smaller right now. I was betting, for much of last year, I was betting 10, 20,000 a game. This year, I'm probably as of right now, that could change. Right now, I'm betting anywhere from 2 to 5. Yeah, probably 2 to 5 a game. But at one point, I was last year I was betting 10, 20,000 a game. Sometimes I had 30 or 40 or 50 on the game. But
ladies and gentlemen, the Ringer and Fanduel are not paying his bills. This man is betting and paying his bills. Follow him. Gotta respect it. Anybody who puts their money where their mouth is, you got my respect.
I think the thing with the Grizzlies, I really like defense. I weigh defense so heavily for the regular season, and under Taylor Jenkins, this team has been a top 5 defense forever. They had they were second in defensive rating last year, and Dylan Brooks is addition by subtraction.
So they basically
replaced Dylan Brooks with Marcus Smart. So as much as we'll look at the Celtics and say, why is Marcus Smart taking these elevated shots? He's basically like a better Dylan Brooks. Marcus
he's
Smart
an upgrade
last year he's such a huge upgrade, and they've always won games without John Morant. The only concern I have is there's no Tyus Jones.
He was a guy that would come in on nights, and betting player props. I'm looking at his alt line assists. I'm sitting there going, if this guy can get 25 minutes, 6, 8 assists, these are all in play, and you're getting decent odds on it. So, I'm again another team. Not having Ja for so long. I like Jaren Jackson. I like Aquaman. Luke Kennard, I could do without, but I'm excited to watch Derrick Rose. to get some quality Derrick Rose minutes that he was stashed away in New York. He's young. I mean, he's not young, but he's like 32, 33. He's still there's juice in those legs. I want to watch it.
He's 35.
He's 35? Shit, I thought he was the same age as me. I'm 34, so we're close enough.
Yeah, we're getting old, man.
89, still an 80s baby.
I'm 37.
Let me. You're 37? Shit, you look younger than me. All right, let's go to my pick. We went through Raheem's. This is the team I'm very high on, and I'm going with an alt line. And I think Raheem's getting the feeling that I like playing some juicy odds. I'm rolling with the Thunder at alt line of over 47.5. I'm getting nearly 2-1. I'm getting plus 180. This is over on DraftKings. You can take the little bar. You can tick it over to 47.5. This was plus 235 4 days ago when I tweeted it out. Now it's down to plus 180. I love this Oklahoma City team as a regular season team. Let's take a look at their jump. They won, I think, 27 games 2 years ago. They won 40 games last year. They have a first-team All-NBA SGA. I love their core of Giddey, Dort, Jalen Williams. And then they bring in Chet Holmgren. If you're talking about the preseason, this guy looks as advertised. And this is considered his rookie year. So now we have these 4 young guys take Chet out of there. The other 3 guys, they have minutes. They have experience. I think they're going to run through the regular season. They were a top 4 team against the spread last season. So keep that in mind. I love this alt line at 47.5. I think they're going to land as a top 4 seed in the West. Now, they also have the most ammunition of any team in the NBA to completely destroy the trade deadline. They have more firsts and pick swaps. And if they're getting really froggy, you could probably package Dort, Ousmane Dieng. They really like these tall stretch guys. I think they have a roster to make a move. And if they don't make a move, I think they have a roster that can easily win 49 games. So I love them at plus 180. What are your thoughts on, even though it is the West, what are your thoughts on OKC taking another leap from last year?
So I was nervous about this one. I saw the win total.
What's the regular win total? I think it's like 45, 44 and a half.
I think it may be 45. Go ahead.
So I came into this year saying I'm going to play the
Oklahoma City over. And then I saw the win total, and I'm like, damn, the book's caught on. But the way you worded this, and you're playing the alternate win total, I'm going to have to steal this one for myself. Like, I really, really like this one. And one of the things that I was going to approach, and I actually said this on, the Ringer Game On podcast today, which dropped earlier today on Fanduel TV, is I like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to win MVP.
Wow.
Because it's like, you look at his numbers, 31 points per game,
almost 5 rebounds, almost 6 assists, 51% shooting, 27 per. Those are MVP numbers.
So,
and now throw in being a top 4 team. Yeah, and now saying, okay, now I'm on a top 4 team and doing it.
Exactly. So
if Oklahoma City makes that leap, like at the very least, and I don't like to tell people this, but this bet is going to have cash out value.
There's certain books out there that'll
let you bet, and then you can cash it out. You're looking at 19-1, 18-1 on SGA. This number is going to be, 10-1, 5-1, maybe even 3-1 if he repeats what he did last year and Oklahoma City makes that leap. So that's where I would like. I mean, I'm probably going to play Oklahoma City there.
If you're in on them, like you said, there may not be in the line. I just looked it up, Raheem. It's 44.5. It's minus 120 on DraftKings. I'm sure you could shop it down and get the juice close to even, but 44.5 is the standard line. If you're all in, if you believe in the team, like I think this team can play in the regular season, and I like what I see from Chet, and I like their flexibility before the deadline. Again, their youth. I think they're going to take the regular season very, very seriously versus a team like the Suns that are maybe we just want to hang around. I just want to get into that top 6. I don't want to be in the play-in. We don't have anything to prove till March. This is the opposite. These young guys, I think, are going to have something to prove. So I would say play the alt line if you believe in them. If you don't believe in them, that's fine. But I think the alt line's where the value's at.
Yeah, without a doubt. I love that one. I'm still in that one.
The other team I'm pretty high on, and I mean when you're an NBA fan, when you got the league pass, you have your league pass teams. You have you obviously you watch the Nuggets and the Lakers and the Knicks and everything. They're on ESPN every other night. I love my league pass teams. I love the teams that are bottom 10. Who's the talent? Where are they going? They're the movers and shakers for. I'm really going to be excited to watch Houston. I'm actually excited to watch Cade in Detroit. I can't wait to see if the Pistons make a little. I love their young core. I love Ivy. I love Duran. The Orlando Magic very much fit that bill. They're a team that I watched every single night, mostly because they started at 7 and I'm on the East Coast. But I love Paolo. I love Franz Wagner. I think Jalen Suggs, if he stays, is a good defensive stalwart in the backcourt, but he also could be a piece to move. I'm actually shocked that they weren't involved more in trade talks for Dame or Paul George, because this team I can see really taking, I wouldn't call it a leap, but for them to get into play-in, that means they got to land between 7 and 10 in the East, in a top-heavy East. I'm getting plus 135 on the Magic. They bring in a Joe Ingles, who he's a vet. I'm not expecting much from him, but they needed a vet in that locker room because it was all youth. It was nothing but youth in Orlando. I like him as more of a mentor and a coach than anything else. But to round out that roster, Markelle Fultz reminds you every once in a while he had a pass in the preseason that he pulled out of his ass the other night. And I'm like, this guy was a first pick overall for a reason. Gary Harris, Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, Jonathan Isaac, when he comes in, he just physically he looks dominant. The problem is he's never on the floor. My big thing is Paolo, and I think he showed a lot in the FIBA World Cup. He was a guy, he had 1 or 2 big games in that tournament, and he showed me that he's a year or 2 away from being a first or second team All-NBA guy. But it's there. The mechanics, the talent, the passing. If he can add a 3-point shot to his game, I think he's first or second team NBA in the next 2 years. For now, I think they could be a 9th or 10th seed in the East, and I'm getting it at plus 135.
Yeah, I like that one. I really do. And I like a lot of their younger guys. I mean,
You called it Franz Wagner. Like I think they have everything that you need to be a playing team and challenge for that. So this is a good bet.
And if we take a look really quick at the East, we know how top heavy it is. Take the Bucks and the Celtics. They're 1-2, 2-1, whatever you want to do. 76ers, I don't know if they're going to be a 3 seed in the East next season. James Harden's foot's out the door. He's chilling in Houston. He's probably going to the Clippers, but Daryl Morey's not going to get anything near what he was asking. I don't know if you saw the tweet that came out this morning, what he asked for from LA. Did you see it?
Oh, yeah, I saw it. That was...
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, you should have threw in Paul George. It's like, dude, you're not getting Terrence Mann. You might as well keep your mouth shut about Paul George, but he's going to end up going for Norman Powell.
I mean, I appreciate Daryl Morey for standing on business, because at the end of the day, like, I'm not giving up James Harden for a bag of chips either. And you've seen him do this before. He's been patient. Yep. He was patient with Ben Simmons, and he got James Harden. Now, how you get him is how you lose him. But I think this is the right approach, because at some point, somebody's going to make a leap, and somebody's going to say, you know what, I got to make this trade. So I agree with him, holding out.
He'll get something. He won't get his first or his second offer. He'll get something. I think he'll land in LA. I think Norman Powell's definitely going to be part of that, but I'd be curious what else they get. But just looking at the East, Bucks and Celtics, they're 1-2. I'm confident in that. Cavs, I think, land in the top 5. I actually like the Heat to have a way better regular season. They were destroyed with injuries last year. Let's throw the Heat in the top 6.
I like
Knicks and Nets. Nets, I liked what I saw the second half of the season, but I'm curious how they gel over the course of a season. And I'm not about to buy into the Ben Simmons hype, but I kind of want to, just from what we're seeing. He's shooting the ball, which is a start for Ben Simmons. So we're seeing shots in NBA games. The Hawks, I think, regress. I don't like Trae Young and DeJounte Murray together. It's not for me.
Interesting. I like the Hawks this year.
You do. I mean, I like Bogey. I like Bogey as a 6th man of the year candidate, but what do you see in that team? What do you see in that Hawks team?
It's all Quinn Snyder.
When you bring in a coach like Quinn Snyder, I just think they pushed that Celtics team, and he didn't even get a full training camp.
So you give him a full training camp.
the one thing that we've seen from the Hawks consistently is, I mean, outside of last year, is they had top 5 offenses. Quinn Snyder has always had top 5 offenses when he was with the Jazz. If you put two and two together, this is going to be a team who can score, and I think the win total of 41 is probably a little bit low if everybody stays healthy.
Fair enough. I'm not going to knock the Quinn Snyder angle. I think it's fair. And he was really just evaluating the second half of the season when he came in. It wasn't. I think he was just like, okay, these are my pieces. Let me play with what I got and see what I have. I'll evaluate for next season. One team that I think is going to blow it up by the deadline is the Toronto Raptors. I think Siakam, he could be another candidate for the Oklahoma City Thunder if they do make a move. But I think the Raptors. I love Scotty Barnes as most improved player. There's a guy who averaged, I think, 16, 6, and 5. If they move OG, which I don't know what value they have on him, if they move Pascal, I do think the team falls into the bottom, but it's going to be a really good development year for Scotty Barnes. I think he could jump to that close to 20, maybe 7 and 7, which is rare air in the NBA. So I like the Raptors as a league pass team, not necessarily a successful team, but they're going to be a team that's fun to watch. And I think I'm the president of the Gary Trent Jr. fan club. I just love betting on the guy. He's anywhere from 10 points to 30 on any given night. And if you hit his alt line on threes, if you hit his alt line on 20, when his over-under is 13 and a half, I've had him at 20 plus points. I'm getting plus 220. The guy's 13, over 13 and a half. He comes off the bench, gets hot. I love Gary Trent Jr. I got to have an autographed jersey somewhere in my office of him. But the Raptors are a team that I don't think are going to be good, but they're going to be fun to watch. And then the Pacers. I think the Pacers up. Rick Carlisle, more Tyrese Halliburton. Mathurin gets injected into the starting lineup. So the East is going to be fun at the bottom. Is there anyone else we haven't talked about in the East? The NBA is the deepest it's ever been. We're ready for expansion.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned the Raptors because I did love their under. I did love the Pacers over. It's so funny because I'm doing all these podcasts and we're splitting them up. So my mind is on the West. That's why I went like so many West teams because we did the Eastern Conference weeks ago. One I'm interested in taking is probably the Bulls under because I think they have real blow it up potential.
They haven't had the ability to blow it up the last 2 years because they've just been locked in. There were no new moves to make. Nobody's what is it? I mean, they were locked in with DeRozan and Levine. They were locked in with Vucevic. They made their bed. They had to sleep in it. Now they may be finally able to get out from under some of those contracts. I'd be curious what angle they go. I just feel bad for Lonzo Ball, man. I want to see him play basketball again. Yeah. That Chicago Bulls team before he got hurt was rolling. They were rolling. They were playing good defense. He was getting open looks. He was shooting his best career, I think, from 3. And then his injury happened and the whole team derailed. So there was a 6-week window. We were talking about the Bulls in the East. Then Lonzo get hurt and it all goes to shit. I'd love to see him back.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. Right. But honestly, I'll really be surprised if Levine or DeRozan or both finish the season with that team. That was shocking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now we beat NBA to death. We have an NFL Sunday coming up. It is week 7. Where I go normally pretty heavy into my NFL. I'll bring my favorite play, and it's typically an over, depending on what I'm looking at. And then I'll bring in some alt lines. So I'll be like, I loved in London, Dalton Kincaid, loved him at 3+ receptions. Then I alt lined him 4+, 5+, and sure as shit, it was the Dogs game. I was handicapping a tight end against that Jacksonville Jaguars defense. I handicapped the wrong one. But I love getting those. I love getting those alt lines. If I find value, then the derivatives also should have value. We're not going to do that this week. We're going to stick with our plays. I know you want to talk about this Washington Commanders team in an NFC East divisional matchup. They're giving 2.5 to the Giants. Why does this stand out in the model?
This is not even a model play, to be honest with you. This is like when you look at the Giants, they played that big game on Sunday Night Football where they played the Buffalo Bills close. And now you come back, and the biggest thing that you're seeing this week is the Giants' offensive line is completely decimated. I mean, they're signing practice squad. They're signing practice squad guys. I mean, they brought in
Justin Pugh off the couch.
Yeah, Tyree Phillips. I mean, like pretty much the entire offensive line is hurt. Like, and I mean everybody. So it's just you're facing a Washington Commanders defensive line, which is top 15 in pressure rate. So if you have the entire offensive line banged up, this is just a bad mismatch. And last week they played a Buffalo Bills team who was riddled with injuries on defense. Matt Milano, we know Trey White is out, so we knew that they would take a step back defensively. Commanders actually have a better defense this week. So I think the Commanders, if they put up 17, 20 points, and we know teams aren't scoring a lot of points, they put up 17 points, they win and cover this game.
I'm actually going to ride with you on this one. And it's for another reason. The Giants, I want to say they overachieved on Monday night. They came down to the last play of the game. They took the Buffalo Bills to the wire. Now, you could make the argument maybe the Bills are underperforming since they've been in London, but I don't want to say that was a win for them, but that was a feel-good moment, at least for a second, that they went wire to wire in prime time. Now, let's come back down to reality, and we're facing Chase Young and in a divisional matchup. So this Commanders team, they just play their division very, very well. We saw what they've done to Philadelphia this year and last year. I like the 2.5. The only concern I may have, are the Giants home or the Giants are home. The only thing that scares me is home divisional underdogs. I think the trend is like 60%, but this may not be that case because this Giants team is, if you can't defend, if you can't get it done in the trenches, it's a wrap. So I'm actually going to ride with you on this one. I may throw in a player prop to get my juice up. Maybe I go Brian Robinson touchdown, Commanders money line, and get that around plus 150 because the Giants defense looked okay, but I don't know. You're coming on I like betting on against teams on a short week. This is technically a short week playing Monday night. I got to find that line. I got to find a Brian Robinson touchdown money line Commanders.
Yeah, to me, it would really stun me if the Giants won this game, just based on their offensive line history. And I just think that's enough for me. Typically, I mean, the Commanders coming off a big win, but I just think this Giants team is probably one of the worst in the league. And we all know that their defense is pretty bad. Like, I mean, that was the one game where their defense kind of showed up. But I think that said more about the Bills than it said about the Giants because in the second half, the Bills they got whatever they wanted. So they just came out a little sluggish coming back from London.
If this gets to that magic number of 3, Raheem, are you still playing? Or are you staying away?
No. I already played it already at 2.
Okay. So for the listeners out there, if you see it get to 3, it may lose some of its value.
Yeah. I would not play this at 3. And I don't think it's going to get to 3, honest. I thought I was going to get to 3 at first, but I think if you get to 3, I think you'll probably have some buyback, but I doubt it.
All right. Let's go into one of my favorite player props for the weekend. It's a game we talked about a little bit in the open. It's that Ravens-Lions game. I'm on Jared Goff, over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I'm getting plus 120. You can still shop around. I think it's still roughly plus 120. If I look at just him hitting this line, he's done it in 2 of the last 3. He's done it in 3 of 6 on the season. He's going to be without David Montgomery. And the reason I think this is plus money is because Baltimore has only given this up once all season, and it was to Joe Burrow. But I want to go through in detail that QB list that these Baltimore Ravens have faced. They get C.J. Stroud in his first game ever. They get Gardner Minshew, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Kenny Pickett, and a combination of Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis over in London. I'm not sold yet on this Baltimore Ravens defense being flat-out dominant. I mean, I do like Roquan Smith. I like Patrick Queen. I love this at plus 120. If we look at Goff last week, Montgomery went down very, very early. He threw the ball 44 times. He threw 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. They won 20-6. I do think this game's going to be a little bit more back and forth than that Bucs game last week. So he's going to have multiple red zone trips. They're not sold on giving the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield. For whatever reason, I don't know. Sam Laporta should be suited up. He's practiced in limited participation this week. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They get Jamison Williams back. Now this is 3rd or 4th game back from suspension. I think Goff's rolling, and I know that's a public take, but the reason this is plus money odds is because the Baltimore Ravens have been so good at shutting down quarterbacks, and I'm not sold on any of the guys they shut down. outside of Burrow, and Burrow ended up doing it. So give me the plus 120. Give me Goff to throw 2 touchdowns.
So I like this one.
And I think the only concern is what's the weather there? Because I did hear there's supposed to be some windy conditions. Is that the case?
I think that's fair because I'm worried about weather also this weekend. I'm supposed to be having a party for my son, and we had to pause it on Saturday. Let me take a look real quick. Sunday, Baltimore, Maryland. Partly cloudy, 62 degrees, 17-mile-an-hour winds. Is that
okay?
Bad? Good. 17, no rain though.
I think when you're looking at
I think it's like 15 to 20, 25 mile per hour winds. That's when it starts to be
an issue.
Sketchy.
I think this
the total is coming down. We opened up 45. We're down to 42 and a half. That would be my only concern with this one, but I think you nailed it with, Jared Goff. I mean, you're looking at a guy last 17 games, 391 of 578, 67% completion percentage, 4,473 passing yards, 29 passing interceptions. 29 passing touchdowns to 4 interceptions. Lions are 13-4 in those games. So, Goff has been rolling. And I agree with you. When you listed those lists of quarterbacks, C.J. Stroud, 16th in EPA per play, plus completion over expectation. DTR, unranked, not enough snaps. Joe Burrow, without a cab, 30th in EPA, plus completion over expectation. Kenny Pickett, 33rd. Gardner Minshew, 25th. Anthony Richardson, 28th. Ryan Tannehill, 22nd. Malik Willis, unranked. So this is the best quarterback that they faced. So I think your process on this is dead on. You just want to watch for that weather. That's the only issue that I have with it.
Something to monitor on the weather, but we are getting a little bit of juice on some plus money odds. There's one I'm throwing at you before we go because I want to show you some of the thought process I have on some of these player props. Russell Wilson over 23.5 rushing yards. And I found a bit of a correlation that stands out to me. Handicapping quarterback rushing totals against teams that successfully bring pressure equates to more rushing attempts, especially with plays breakdown. Now, in the NFL, sacks do not count as negative yards like they do in college football. This helps us. Wilson has hit this line twice this season. Against the Commanders, he had 53. Against the Jets, he had 27. Against the Chiefs, he had 4 rush attempts, but only 13 yards. All 3 of these teams are top 10 in NFL QB pressure rates. Now, the Green Bay Packers this week, they land 8th on that list and rank 9th in the NFL with 5 QB rushing attempts per game. Now, Wilson's at 6.5 yards per carry this season. If he hits those 5 rushing attempts, he blows this line out of the water. So I'm on Russell Wilson on a rush total, not because he's been so successful at it, because this matchup and the teams he's faced that fit my little demographic, he's had success. He's going to pull the ball down. I think he's going to rush 4 or 5 times. If he does, this line is favorable. So I'm on Wilson over 23.5. You could play the alt line of 25 plus. I think you get like plus 110 on it, maybe minus 105. I just like it at the 23.5. But I wanted to give you some insight in my player props. It's some numbers, it's some subjectivity. But 23.5, I think, looks good to me on Russ, who he's playing for his job, man. I mean, I don't think he finishes the season as the Broncos quarterback.
Yeah, this one makes a lot of sense. It really does. And
I need to start thinking about
player props. Just because the way you broke that down was so great. So I think this is a good one. I definitely do.
Cool. I had to open up the treasure chest of tricks that I bring out in player props because there is some model to it. There is some stats to it. And with the books, they've gotten better at hiring guys to handicap this because 2-3 years ago, player props were getting feasted on. And now it's the most bet market. And now sports books, specifically the rec books, are putting a lot more resources on it to get these lines sharper. But we have tools like, you use DVOA. I'm a big fan of PFF. You can start using these things. How are players doing against man and zone coverages? I look at the New Orleans Saints tonight. We're recording this on Thursday. It's coming out on Friday. Saints run the second most man coverage in the NFL. What does that mean for Christian Kirk? What does that mean for Calvin Ridley and Evan Ingram? We can start breaking these things down thanks to PFF and some of those numbers. So We're getting smarter than the books. It's just taking a little bit longer than I wanted. Raheem, I can't thank you enough for joining me, man. Go ahead.
No doubt. What kind of I want to ask you, what kind of limits are they taking on these props now? I mean, have they moved the limits up with them getting sharper?
I am not someone who is exhausting my limits, but if you are new to a sports book, you could probably get $2,000, I would guess. And then as soon as you start winning, they'll bring that back down to reality. But you could probably get $2,000. I don't know what state you're in. I mean, I'm in Jersey. I have access to all the rec books, so I don't know where you're at.
I'm in Philly.
You're in Philly, so you probably still. I don't know if you have Bet365 is hands down the most vulnerable book I've ever seen. But once you get good, they're going to limit you and cut you off. So pick your spots and hammer. They're really good with alt lines, alt receiving, alt receptions, alt rush attempts. You can make a killing on Bet365, but they're gonna cut you pretty quick. Raheem, man, having a handicapper on here was an awesome change of pace. You are always welcome to come back. I greatly appreciate it. We are going to get this up on YouTube. Make sure you are following this man on X at I am Romstradamus. He is on Fanduel TV. What's your Fanduel TV and Ringer schedule like? Plug it.
We do East Coast Bias on Ringer Gambling Show on Mondays. I have my own show on Tuesdays called the Romstradamus Show, which is on the Ringer Gambling feed. Then on Thursday, we actually have we do East Coast Bias, which is on Spotify, and then we also do that on FanDuel TV. And then on Sundays, we have a live show called The Wise Guys on FanDuel TV. Cousin Sal, JJ House, and myself. That's Sunday at 11 a.m. That's live on FanDuel TV every Sunday.
You are living the dream, my friend. I can only imagine. If you ever need a player prop guy, you know who to call, man.
I'm gonna bring you on to the show because
at some point, I'll have you come on. I love the fact that you do NBA, so I'll bring you on at some point. Definitely.
I love it, man. Guys, make sure you are subscribing, following at the Prop Shop on YouTube. And thank you so much for listening. Best of luck on your bets this weekend. Take care.